Hi, my name is Calvis Rice, and I'm the Director of Business Development at IPS. And this is how not to lose money with Bodymaker tooling. Did you know that can plants make two products? The first one is obvious, it's cans. The second one, however, is less obvious and will be the topic of this mini lecture. It is scrap, and specifically we'll talk about scrap from the cupper and the trimmer. So it's important to point out that cans are sold to customers based on a price per can, which means that the can value is based on quantity. Trim scrap, however, is sold back to the aluminum mill based on a price per metric ton, which means that trim scrap value is based on weight. Now, copper scrap is fairly predictable and does not have much variation once the die set is installed and things are running. Scrap from the trimmer, however, is less predictable, and much of the variation that comes from it is based on tooling geometry. So our goal is to optimize the can weight. A can is designed to have certain geometries and profiles, and that set has a certain can weight. So we don't want to put more metal in the can than we need to. So by optimizing the can weight, as a result, we're actually optimizing the trim scrap weight as well. And this is important because scrap from a trimmer on a can line that produces 1 billion cans a year can be worth as much as $500,000. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to dig into what the can profile looks like and how tooling geometry controls certain areas of the can profile. The first thing we'll focus on is right here. And this is the mid-wall to dome transition. Two things I want to point out is that at the top here we have thin metal and at the bottom we have thick metal. Now this area of a can allows it to withstand axial load, and it also gives a smooth transition of the metal from the mid-wall to the dome. And this area on the can is a direct reflection of geometry on the punch called the rework taper. The second area of the can we'll focus on is up top here. And this is the mid-wall to top wall transition. Again, a couple things worth pointing out is that at the top we have thick metal and at the bottom we have thin metal. The thick metal is required so that the necking process has enough metal to work with. And again, this geometry on the can is a direct reflection of a feature on the punch called the transition or the step. Now that we understand that the rework taper creates the mid-wall to dome transition and that the punch step creates the mid-wall to top wall transition, it's important to point out that if these two critical geometries are not controlled, 25% or more of the trim scrap can easily be left in the can. So how do we control our tooling geometry better? Well, first off, tooling inspection is critical. It's important to measure your major diameter, to inspect your step, your body taper if your punch calls out for one, as well as your rework taper. So the key here is to start with a good punch. How can we expect to have a good can if we do not know that the punch and the tooling going into the Bodymaker is good as well? One thing to point out is there are sets of advanced gauges out there, just like the ToolScan 2.0, which IPS sells, that can inspect in detail the step of the punch. In this image right here, we show exactly how that's done, where we plot the step of the punch and compare it to that of the print. Second piece of controlling tooling geometry better is to have high quality tooling. So it's important to get inspect tooling delivered direct from the factory. It's important that the tooling is of quality materials And one of the characteristics of a quality material is resistance to abrasion. So this is important because we now know that specific areas of the tooling geometry must be controlled. So the longer that these geometries can stay as they should be, the more quality cans we'll end up making. So this is an important piece. And the key here is to select a quality tooling supplier. We must be able to rely on them to provide consistent, timely delivery of quality tools. So Hyperion is one of the best quality suppliers in the can making industry, and there is a premium grade carbide that they sell called DZ18. It has many advanced characteristics, including resistance to abrasion, density, and things like tool life are improved with the DZ18. So I recommend that you contact Hyperion, your local sales rep, and see if DZ18 is a good fit for your plant. The third piece of controlling your tooling geometry is process. So tooling inspection process is important, making sure that all tooling is inspected before it ends up on the shelf and of course in the Bodymaker. Also, it's important that the tooling stabilizes to the correct temperature before it is measured. Tooling surface is important. So when we crosshatch a punch, we want to avoid hand crosshatching. Now that we understand that certain geometries of the punch are very critical, you can only imagine what type of damage a hand crosshatch can do. So the X2 crosshatch machine is the best way to apply a crosshatch to your punch. It's important to respect the rework taper. So we never want to polish the rework taper. Polishing the rework taper can have two problems. First off, we can increase the frequency of hubcap tear-offs because we have the wrong surface finish on that area of the punch. Secondly, by polishing the rework taper, we deform the punch's geometry and are potentially putting more money into the can, robbing it directly from the trim. And finally, it's Bodymaker basics, making sure your Bodymaker is aligned and doing the maintenance that you should be doing on the Bodymaker to have it running optimally. A final piece I want to talk about is the ToolScan 2.0, which is IPS's gauge for measuring Bodymaker and Necker tooling. Here we see the punch OD, which is a very simple process that takes less than 15 seconds. On punches, the ToolScan can also measure the rework taper. It has an integrated step or transition scan feature, as well as other things. The ToolScan also measures ironing and redraw dies. Here, it is shown integrated with Tool Control, which is a tool tracking and inventory control software we'll be releasing in 2020. But as you see here, measuring Bodymaker ironing and redraw dies is a very simple and repeatable process. Something we're very excited about is that in early 2020, we'll be releasing added capabilities to the ToolScan 2.0, which is we'll be measuring Necker tooling as well as having roundness and runout capabilities. The ToolScan 2.0 is the most repeatable gauge in our industry, coming in at 15 millionths of an inch or 0.38 microns. And it does all of this very quickly. Every size measurement comes in faster than 15 seconds. There's of course a remote support module which allows us to communicate with customers around the globe to help train, to help include or modify tooling profiles in the system, or in the worst case, if something goes wrong, we can remotely troubleshoot. And finally, the ToolScan 2.0 has been designed to integrate with Tool Control. We'll have more information on Tool Control in the coming months. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us, shoot us an email, or visit our website.